Good to be with you this morning. I want to tell you a story this morning. A story of two tombstones, which might sound a little morbid to have a Sunday morning message about tombstones, but I assure you it is not morbid. Two tombstones. The first one is found somewhat hidden and disguised in one rather ordinary day in the life of Jesus, where he simply was doing what he did every day. You know, in Mark chapter 1, Mark says Jesus went into Galilee proclaiming the good news of God, and that's what he did every day in 1,000 different ways. And the first tombstone is found hidden in John, the Gospel of John, chapter 4. And it's a beautiful story of how God can turn around the life of a person. It's an old story. I'm sure you've heard it before. But I wonder what your reaction would be if today was the first day you heard it. Either way, it's a story that has lessons for all of us in many different ways, for those who are hurting, for those who are seeking, for those who are proud, for those who think they've got it all figured out. It's a good story. But before we go into that story, we need to take a little detour to the second tombstone. Have you heard of Max Lucado? Some call him Lucado. I call him Lucado. Max Lucado, well, he's written a lot of books, and he has pastored a church down in San Antonio, Texas for a lot of years. As far as I know, he still does, part-time. Let me tell you about a story that he tells. One morning, Max Lucado was on his way to work at the church in San Antonio, and it was a cloudy, almost rainy day, a little closer to rain than we have today. The kind of day where you're not sure whether you should have your wipers on or not. Also the kind of day where you just don't feel like getting to work on time. You'd rather just pull over at a Starbucks and lose yourself in a latte for a while. Anyway, he was driving along and he saw a sign that interested him, so he took a left turn at the Burger King, followed a road that didn't see a lot of traffic, and near the top of a small hill there was a great big imposing black steel sign, Lock Hill Cemetery. Do you ever wander through cemeteries? Cemeteries where you don't know anybody who was buried there, just, you're on a road trip and you see the sign and you pull off. My wife and I do sometimes. It can be fascinating. Max Lucado did that this morning, or that particular morning. A few scattered drops of rain spattered around him as he wandered up and down the rows of headstones. Maybe he should have taken an umbrella. He wonders, who was this person, or what kind of a person was that? Most of the epitaphs are very simple and short, rest in peace, or something like that. Some just R.I.P., make it really short. Occasionally there's one that tries to be funny. My wife and I saw one at the cemetery of the Hanley Mennonite Church last year, and whenever I think of that one, it still has me chuckling. Max kept on wandering, and off in one corner, way in the back, he sees this headstone, big granite slab, and the epitaph on that one stopped him. It read like this: sleeps, but rests not. Tried to please, but pleased not. Loved, but was loved not. Died as she lived, alone. The name was Grace Llewellyn Smith, and Max Lucado stood there transfixed. the wheels of his imagination spinning. Who was Grace Llewellyn Smith? Was she beautiful, or was she homely? Was she rich? Was she poor? What happened in her life? Whom did she love that didn't love her in return? Whom did she try to please, but who just wasn't pleased? Did she wait up long nights waiting for someone to come back who never did? Did she eventually give up and become hard? Why did she die alone? What was it about her life that inspired that epitaph? Sleeps, but rests not. Tried to please, but pleased not. Loved, but was loved not. Died as she lived alone. And did that really sum up her life? No one should, at the end of their life, have to have that kind of an epitaph on their tombstone. So that's tombstone number one, the tombstone of Grace Llewellyn Smith, down in San Antonio, Texas, in a back corner of Lock Hill Cemetery. But, as Max Lucado tells us, there's another woman who might have had this epitaph, another woman for whom the same things might have been written. In fact, the beginnings of this epitaph were all there. Likely, nothing would have changed except for that one day. And you might say, Max Lucado and I, in turn, are using our imagination a little too freely, but I don't think we're being untrue to the text. This one is in John chapter 4. This woman, for whom the same thing might have been written, her eyes watch her feet as she walks. The path is familiar. She doesn't need to look up. She doesn't want to look up. It's nearly noon. The sun beats down from nearly overhead. She sees the shadow of her head and that heavy water jar as she walks. She sees the shadow of that just in front of her feet as she walks. She watches the dust puff up between her toes. As long as she keeps looking down, she doesn't have to meet the eyes of the others. The empty water jar on her shoulder is heavy, but it isn't near as heavy as the stares of the others. Down the street of the village, out to the well, the old well. They say that well was dug by one of her ancestors, Jacob, some 1,500 years ago. That doesn't matter to her so much as long as she can still get water. And if she goes at noon, she might be lucky enough not to meet anyone there. She's a Samaritan in Samaria, but she knows about discrimination. She knows how Jews feel about Samaritans. Jews live to the north and Jews live to the south. Often the Jews, won't even walk through Samaria. They'll cross the Jordan River and walk all the way around Samaria and come back across the Jordan again on the other side. She knows about discrimination. She knows about shame. Even in her own village, among her own people, she can keep her eyes down, but she can't keep her ears closed from hearing what the others are saying. There she is. The nerve. There's one who has no shame. How many is it now? 5? 5 husbands? No, I heard there's a new man again. She's heard the words so many times. And then, hush, here she is. She knows about shame and discrimination. She knows about rejection. 5 husbands, 5 rejections, 5 doors slammed behind her as she's put out of her home. Divorce is so easy for a man. Why was it always her fault? So she knows about shame and discrimination and rejection. What she doesn't know is that after today, nothing will be the same. She lifts her eyes as she nears the well. Oh no, there's somebody there. It's a man. She looks again. Yeah, obviously a Jew. Seems to be resting. Maybe he's asleep. Maybe if she's really quiet, she can just get her water and leave. So she draws the water, and he opens his eyes. Now just keep your eyes down. She'll just keep her eyes down. And then he asks her for a drink. She knows enough of the ways of the world and of men. What does he really want? But, surprising herself, she says, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" He says, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." There's something about him that keeps her talking. "Sir," she says, "you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep." Maybe she's a little sarcastic. "Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his flocks and herds?" She knows her history. And he responds, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again." Yeah, she knows that. "But whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." And she responds, and I would love to know the look on her face, the sound of her voice. Was she being sarcastic? Was she being snide? What was she thinking? "Sir, give me this water so that I won't have to get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water. That would be really cool if I could just stay at home. Don't have to come here for water anymore." And then he says, and he puts his finger on the sorest spot in her soul. He says, "Go call your husband and come back." Why does he have to bring that up? How could he know about that? How could he know about my life? He's a Jew. He's not from here. Maybe she could lie. Maybe she could say, "Oh, my husband, well, he's gone off to another village. He won't be back till really, really late tonight." Or she could say, "Oh, he's not feeling very well today. He absolutely can't come out during the heat of the day." But there's something about this man that seems to inspire openness and honesty. And she says, "I have no husband." And he surprisingly says, "You're right when you say you have no husband. In fact, the fact is you've had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is quite true." How does he know all that? How would he know all these things about her? That shocks her. But the other thing that shocks her is there's no condemnation. There's no ridicule. There's no shame on you in the sound of his voice. "What kind of a woman are you?" Just simply saying, "Yes, this is who you are," without condemning. She says, "Sir, I see that you are a prophet." And then it's like, "Since you're a prophet, I have a question. Have you ever wished there would be a prophet somewhere in a local coffee shop, or maybe in some place a little more private, where you could ask one really, really important question. Her question is, "Sir, I can see you are a prophet. Where is God?" Have you ever wished you could ask somebody that question? Where is God in this situation or that situation? Someone you love is dying. Someone you love has had some bad news. Something else is going wrong. Where is God? And the answers you get from people often seem so frail. She doesn't ask it specifically, "Where is God?" But she says, "Sir, I can see you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim the place we must worship is in Jerusalem." So in other words, where is he? Where's God? Where should we worship him? And he answers with a rather long explanation of, "You Samaritans, you worship here on this mountain, but the Jews, yeah, we do know where to worship. It is in Jerusalem." But ultimately, he says, the time is coming when it doesn't matter so much where you worship as what's in your heart. It's the heart of the worshiper that matters, not the place. So then she says, "I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." And Max Lucado says, did Jesus smile when he heard that question or that comment? Did his eyes water a bit? Did he look up to heaven and wink? He says, "I who speak to you am he." She says, "I know that Messiah is coming. When he comes, I will explain everything. He will explain everything to us." And Jesus says, "That's me." Of all the great stadiums that were present in the Roman Empire at that time, of all the great temples that were available even in Asia Minor at that time, of all the great kings or emperors or high priests available in the world at that time, Jesus chooses an ostracized woman alone at the well of a small town in Samaria to be the first person to tell who he really is. Imagine that. I imagine her mouth drops open. She puts down her water jar, this thing that has bowed her shoulders for so long. She turns around and she bumps right into Peter and the rest of the disciples who are just coming back with some takeout from the local lunch corner and wondering, what's going on here? Why is he talking to her? And she has no time for that. She runs back to the town without her water jar. The town where she kept her head down, hoping nobody would notice her. She heads back and she says, "Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did." Why was that so important to her? Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Christ? Well, he had already told her he was the Christ, but some things kind of sink in hard. But she tells everybody, the whole town. They came out of the town and made their way toward him. All these people, they got to see what's going on here. The disciples, in the meantime, had said, "Rabbi, eat something." And he says, "I have food to eat you don't know anything about." Oh, who brought him food? Did that lady bring him food? The disciples also weren't that bright. "My food," said Jesus, "is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work." And he's watching these people come out of the village towards the well. "Do you not say 4 months more and then the harvest? I tell you, open your eyes. Look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest." They're coming. The harvest is coming. And then these people that this woman has told, she's got to be one of the most unusual missionaries I could imagine. But she came with Jesus' message of good news to the people, and the people came out. And then in verse 39, many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. Again, the significance of that. Is that so significant because Jesus knew everything she had done and didn't condemn her? Jesus knows everything I've done, and he hasn't condemned me, nor does he condemn you. So the Samaritans from the town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days. And and because of his words, many more became believers. Two tombstones. The first one was that of Grace Llewellyn Smith, a slab of cold concrete with an epitaph of hopelessness and lovelessness, a forlorn, lonely tombstone in a corner of an old cemetery. And the second tombstone of this 5-time divorced woman, but instead of a slab of cold granite, it's that water jar that she put down by the well as she ran back to the village to tell all the people to come out and meet this man who just might be the Christ that they've all been waiting for. Her water jar that bent her shoulders and condemned her to walk to the well every day for more water. Her water jar that she didn't even take back into the village with her, because putting that water jar down for her meant freedom. It symbolized the end of one life and the beginning of a new life. 2 tombstones. Which is closer to yours? Which tombstone would you choose for yourself? Jesus showed over and over that he loved each person. Not everyone, even in the New Testament, responded or accepted his love. Some turned away. But Jesus went around every day proclaiming the good news of God. The good news of God is that he knows you. And he knows everything you've ever done, and he has not condemned you. He has instead offered his life for you. 2 tombstones. One of hopelessness and one of burdens put down and new hope and new life. Call the music team up.